Hello guys, welcome to Physics Grad. In this video, we are going to see how motion of a system is itself a canonical transformation, or in fact a series of canonical transformation which can be generated using the Hamiltonian. So let us begin. So in our previous lecture, that is in lecture CM-L38, we had seen that an infinitesimal canonical transformation will have the following form. Okay, we have seen an infinitesimal canonical transformation will have the form given by the vector psi, which is the vector consisting of the new coordinates and momenta, is equal to the old vector eta plus a small change in eta, or what I mean by this is that the difference between the new vector and the old vector is going to be a quantity which is infinitesimally small. So let us call this equation 1. Okay, when the transformation is continuous, is a continuous function of a parameter, then the transformation as a whole can be broken down into a series of infinitesimal canonical transformation starting from the identity transformation. This also we had seen in the case when time is the continuous parameter. Okay, so identity transformation at some initial value of parameter, which can be taken as 0 for convenience. Okay, so what I mean by this is the following. Let's say that I am having a transformation from eta to psi of which is a function of eta and some parameter lambda. If this parameter lambda takes continuous values, then this particular transformation can be seen as transformation from eta to psi of eta comma 0 to psi of eta comma d lambda to psi of eta comma 2d lambda until it reaches psi of eta comma lambda. That is what this particular statement means. So basically we have broken down the transformation from lambda from eta to psi of eta lambda into a series of infinitesimal canonical transformation. So that is what this statement says. Okay, so that is when we have a transformation that is continuous function of a parameter, the transformation as a whole can be broken down into series of infinitesimal canonical transformation starting from the identity transformation. So when we go from here to here, if this is an infinitesimal canonical transformation of this form, we are going to have simply psi equal to eta, which is the identity transformation, and that corresponds to the case when our parameter takes the value 0. Okay, so that is what we mean by starting from the identity transformation. All right, so for the equation 1 to be infinitesimal canonical transformation, we use a generating function of type 2 given by summation over I qi pi, which is the form of the generating function for an identity transformation. And since this infinitesimal canonical transformation is slightly away from the identity transformation, we modify this identity transformation generating function with another function g multiplied by an infinitesimal value epsilon, which is again should be a function of old coordinates, new momenta and time. Okay, and so here epsilon is approximately 0, that is very close to 0. Okay, and from this we had seen that if we write down the relations for f2 generating function and subtract it from the old coordinates as we have done in our previous lectures, what we see is that our del qi is going to be epsilon times dou g by dou so this is going to be dou g by dou q, correct? Dou qi, and similarly our del pi was minus epsilon dou g by dou pi. So if we write this in a vector notation, then what we will get is that del eta is equal to epsilon times the matrix J dou G by dou eta, where J is of course a 2s cross 2s matrix having the blocks 0, identity, minus of the identity, and 0, where each of the block is s cross s in size. Okay, so this is how we can relate our infinitesimal change in the variables using the matrix notation by making use of the relations for the type 2 generating functions. So in the symplectic form or the matrix form, in one of the previous lecture, that is lecture 39, so in symplectic form we have seen in lecture 39 that a Poisson bracket of functions u and v with respect to the variables given by the vector eta in vector form is nothing but dou u by dou eta transpose times the matrix J times dou v by dou eta. Okay, so using this relation, if I calculate eta comma u, Poisson bracket of eta comma u with respect to eta, this will be j hat dou u by dou eta. Okay, so this I am going to call it as our relation 2. Now remember, Poisson bracket are invariant under canonical transformation. So this implies that the relation 2 is valid with respect to any canonical variables. Okay, so now if I choose my u to be equal to g, okay, that is this function, if I choose my u to be g, then equation 2 is going to give us, so del eta will be equal to, so from this relation we have it is equal to epsilon j hat dou g by dou eta. But if you compare this guy with this guy, we see that this is nothing but Poisson bracket of eta with g with respect to eta. So I can have del eta is equal to epsilon times eta g, and since the Poisson bracket is invariant under canonical transformation, we no longer need to specify with respect to what canonical variables we are taking the Poisson bracket. Okay, so I am just going to leave this relation in this form. So what will happen if we choose, so obviously this function g can be any function in terms of q, p and t. Okay, but if I choose this g to be our Hamiltonian, so if I choose, if g is equal to h, what is going to happen? Okay, so and I also choose our continuous parameter to be time. Okay, so choosing g as equal to h and continuous parameter as time, we can, and of course we can always write h in terms of the old coordinate and new momentum using our using this relation, that is, so once we know once we have this relation, this particular relation, we can of course find what the value of h is going to be in terms of the new momenta, old coordinate and time, and that is what I mean by saying that h should be a function of q, capital P and t. Okay, and if we take our continuous parameter as time, then we can have our epsilon to be equal to dt, and that gives us del eta is equal to dt times eta comma h. Okay, which is nothing but dt times j hat dou h by dou eta. But from our Hamilton's equation in matrix form, this is nothing but eta dot. So this becomes equal to dt into d eta by dt, and if we use the limit definition of this particular expression, this is nothing but d eta. So what we see is that for the transformation psi equal to eta plus del eta, if we choose g as equal to h, then del eta becomes equal to d eta. And what is this d eta? D eta is the change in the value of the old coordinates and momenta for the corresponding change in time. Okay, so diagrammatically what this means is that if we have, let's say in one dimension, our q, p and t, and let us say that the particle moves in this particular path, which is the correct path, and let us say this is some point p comma q, which is nothing but our eta. Now the canonical transformation is giving us eta plus d eta, where this d eta corresponds to change in eta for the corresponding change in time dt. So if we have this is dt, then this particular point is going to be eta plus d eta. Okay, so what this is telling us is that if we use our Hamiltonian in our expression for the type 2 generating function, the resulting infinitesimal canonical transformation will give us the coordinates of the particle at an instant dt away from the initial position. Okay, or in other words, it is telling us the relation between the new coordinates and the old coordinates, which is of course our Hamilton's equation, which in turn implies that the motion of the particle itself is being generated here by the fact that if we use Hamilton as the generating function, we are going to get the new coordinates in the path of the particle, and therefore the Hamilton generates, we say that the Hamilton is generating the motion of the particle. Okay, that is the mean. Yeah, I know that this is a bit confusing, there is a lot to say here, so I'm just going to write all of these things down just to clear it up. Okay, so this d eta is going to be equal to change in p's and q's when the time goes from t to t plus dt. Okay, and since this new coordinates are derived from our Hamilton's equations, because we made use of the Hamilton's equation in this relation here. So at this point we had made use of the Hamilton's equation, and that gave us the new coordinate as d eta. So since this new coordinate are derived from Hamilton's equations, these will lie on the correct path. Okay. So therefore eta plus d eta tells us that is, this is our new coordinates. So our new coordinates tells us how the system has moved from the time instance t to t plus dt in phase space. Okay, so this is nothing but knowing how the system is moving in phase space. So therefore the motion of the system in a time interval dt can be described by an infinitesimal contact transformation. The reason why this is contact transformation is the fact that this transformation is not indeed dependent on time. It is just the new transformation psi equal to eta plus d eta is just dependent on what our old coordinates are. Okay, so therefore it's a contact transformation. So the motion of the system in a time interval dt can be described by an infinitesimal contact transformation that is generated by our Hamilton's function generated by h. Okay, so this implies that the system's motion from some initial time t0 to t is a succession of such infinitesimal contact or canonical transformations, which from our lecture on lecture 38, which is equation to single, or which is equivalent to single finite canonical transformation. Okay, so if this series of canonical transformation, infinitesimal canonical transformation, leads us from our coordinates at time t0 to the coordinates at time t, then the transformation from t0 to t is also canonical. That is what this statement is saying. Okay, thus q and p at t can be obtained from q0 p0 by, which is the initial coordinates, by a canonical transformation that is continuous with respect to time t, because we are breaking it down into a series of infinitesimal canonical transformation with t as the parameter. Okay, and in the successive infinitesimal canonical transformation, we are changing the value of the parameter t by a small amount dt. Okay, so this implies that in this view, motion of a system corresponds to the continuous evolution of a canonical transformation. So this is what we mean when we say that it's a series of canonical transformation, or in other words, it continuously evolves with respect to the parameter t. Okay, and of course h is the generator of system's motion with respect to time. This is what it means when we substitute for g as h. Okay, so that's it for this video. To summarize, what we have seen in this video is that motion itself can be seen as a series of infinitesimal canonical transformations that is being generated by our Hamilton's function. Okay, so thank you for watching. See you next time.